over to my computer. Shabbat Shalom. I just started the recording in the middle of what I was saying. So, in the middle of these violent acts in the United States, that people are very quick to blame the Palestinian liberation movement and the quote unquote language of the Palestinian liberation movement. And I want to say no. I want to say that the Palestinian liberation movement, in the face of a genocide, is actually amazingly nonviolent. And thank God for that. As well, as I believe movements need to be, there's a whole bunch of research out there now that shows that nonviolent movements are actually more successful, and that often we're asked, well, like in the face of the nonviolent actions, people are attacked violently. That doesn't mean the movement's not successful, because even if they respond violently, they're still being attacked violently with greater force. So it's really important that we talk about demystifying and debunking that myth, that actually nonviolent action is the most successful action, and it leads to the greatest ethical, moral systems restructuring of society after the fact, right? Because if we try to overthrow it with violence, it often leads to violent outcomes and creations. So I want to acknowledge the smooth and resilience of the Palestinian people, and both in the diaspora and in Palestine, and their incredible nonviolent resistance. And let's just for a moment, we're going to get to the parsha. It's short. It's kind of blah, and and there's also some beautiful things about that we will get to, I promise. But this is what's alive in the moment. So I think what I'd like to just do is invite us to think for a moment, and I'll start, and you can put it in chat if you don't want to unmute, just to name some of the nonviolent things you recognize that Palestinians are doing every single day. Yeah, Debbie, please.
Writing poetry.
Writing poetry. Judith.
Loving their children.
Loving their children. Neil.
The unbelievable courage to those that are in a privileged position to be in universities, to speaking as a voice for the voiceless.
Man. Andre.
They just keep going.
Right. They just keep going. Joyce. You're muted, Joyce.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I unmuted.
That's okay.
Supporting candidates and elected officials that get it.
Amen. What else are we seeing Palestinians do that's nonviolent? Just living.
Going for food.
Going for food. Ay, 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 ay.
Openly reading.
Openly reading. Praying.
Continuing to observe the holy month of Ramadan, despite the fact that this particular historical moment is atrocious. I believe in the coming of the Messiah, however far in the future that might be.
Chronicling their genocide, reporting on it, the journalists.
Chronicling, yes, the journalists. Digging people out of rubble. Caring loved ones.
doing normal things during abnormal times, like people showing videos of adopting cats in Gaza, and there's a bunch of like weightlifting influencers who are trying to stay with their routine despite lack of food and resources.
Mm, yeah. Thank you, Emily. Joyce.
The doctors and nurses and other first responders that are keeping going despite their numbers being decimated.
Right.
God help us.
And their facilities being decimated. Right.
Yeah.
I saw a video of how they get water out of mud. I don't know if anyone's seen that video. It was just unbelievable. So, thank you all. That was so powerful, huh? Just all the ways that nonviolence is being enacted every single moment of every single day in Gaza, in the West Bank, and here by Palestinians and their allies. So, and there was also commentary about the fact that the Palestinian solidarity movement needs to be careful about its rhetoric. and, and I thought, Judith, yes, exactly. And I thought, I'm sorry, is anyone commenting about the rhetoric of the Israeli government and many, many people in this society and the soldiers? What about changing their rhetoric and their actions? So,
Amen.
I just want to say, like, people ask me, like, how my community is doing and, like, how they feel about what I'm saying. And I love you all so much. I am so grateful that I can say these things. And you're not only, like, you're appreciating it, you're, like, thanking me for it. So thank you. Because it's not, I don't take it for granted, and it's not easy because so many are being so silent or complicit, or silence is complicity. So thank you. Thanks for having my back. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being in community together. And thanks for loving Palestinian liberation as much as we love Jewish liberation. Okay, so the Book of Numbers is a short little book. And we just, so we'll just jump in to it. I'll just say, if you watched my video last week, it started with the importance of naming names and naming communities. And so let's just read, and let me, I said earlier to folks who were on earlier, I'm doing it all today. Leah is away. So bear with me as I, do this stuff, navigating it all. This is a day when it's actually nice to have no one here, just because it makes it a little bit more manageable. But I do miss having people here. So if you're local, come. Okay, Safari, share. Okay. You can all now see. Where are you all? I'm going to move you all up here so I can see you. All right. Does somebody want to unmute and read?
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, Adonai spoke to Moses. Take a census of the Gershonites also, by their ancestral house and by their clans. Record them from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service in the performance of tasks for the tent of meeting.
Sorry.
It's okay. These are the duties of the Gershonite clans as to labor and portage. They shall carry the cloths of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting with its covering, the covering of dolphin skin that is on top of it, and the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting. The hangings of the enclosure, the screen at the center, at the entrance of the gate of the enclosure that surrounds the tabernacle, the cords thereof, and the altar, and all their service equipment, and all their accessories, and they shall perform the service. All the duties of the Gershonites, all their porterage, and all their service shall be performed on orders from Aharon and his sons. You shall make them responsible for attending to all their porterage. Those are the duties of the Gershonite clans for the tent of meeting. They shall attend to them under the direction of Itamar, son of Aharon, the priest. As for the Merarites, you shall record them by the clans of their ancestral home. You shall record them from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service in the performance of the duties for the tent of meeting. These are their porterage tasks in connection with their various duties for the tent of meeting: the planks, the bars, the posts, and the sockets of the tabernacle. The posts around the enclosure and their sockets, pegs, and cords, all these furnishings and their service. You shall list by name the objects that are their porterage tasks. Those are the duties of the Merarite clans pertaining to their various duties in the tent of meeting under the direction of Itamar, son of Aharon, the priest. So Moses, Aharon, and I should say Moshe if I'm saying Aharon. So Moshe, Aharon, and the chieftains of the community recorded the Kohathites by the clans of their ancestral home. From the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting. Those recorded by their clans came to 2,750. That was the enrollment of the Kohathite clans, all those who performed duties relating to the tent of meeting, whom Moshe and Aharon recorded at the command of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh through Moses. The Gershonites, who were recorded by the clans of their ancestral house from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting. Those recorded by the clans of their ancestral house came to 2,630. That was the enrollment of the Gershonite clans, all those performing duties relating to the tent of meeting, whom Moshe and Aharon recorded at the command of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. The enrollment of the Merarite clans by the clans of their ancestral house from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting, those recorded by their clans came to 3,200. That was the enrollment of the Merarite clans, which Moshe and Aharon recorded at the command of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh through Moshe. All the Levites, whom Moshe, Aharon, and the chieftain of Israel recorded by the clans of their houses from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to duties of service and porterage relating to the tent of meeting, those recorded, came to 8,580. Each one was given responsibility for his service and porterage at the command of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh through Moshe, and each was recorded as Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh had commanded Moshe.
Great, thank you. Let's pause there for a moment. 1 second, Neil. I was reading this in preparation and then rereading it now, and I thought, okay, what's all this recording? And here we are recording again, and it's just, again, I want to uplift the importance that our Torah places on naming and recording. And then today, as I'm hearing it, I thought, oh my goodness, Israel has a recording and naming of every single Gazan and West Bank, every single Palestinian, where they live, by their family name. They know who all of them are. That's how they can, right? That's how they can know how to target a doctor's home when they go home, or when they're at work and target their home. So I thought, what a twisted, unfortunate, horrific how do I say that? Twisting. It's a lot of twisting, turning on its head, let's say, turning on its head the how we understand this part of our Torah where it talks about how important it is to name people by names and by clans because you're part of a community. Your life matters, and it matters to your community, and it matters to the world. And yet here we are in a time where they're using the recording and have always used the recording, right? Not for life, not for honoring the dignity and humanity of each individual and their community and their role in their community, but to desecrate it. So that's what came to me when you were just reading that, Judith. Neil, I don't know if you wanted to share something.
I agree with everything that you're saying, that it is the inverse of what the intention was. So in response to that, what I have to say is true, but it seems like a secondary concern. Taking Chinese history, Confucianism, which was incredibly rigid and hierarchical, that came after a civil war that lasted over 50 years. There was widespread chaos. And while it certainly is not a very liberatory way of structuring society, it's a way of trying to create rhyme and reason after such chaos. What I speculate is in the book of Numbers, after 210 years of being enslaved and having no autonomy, that the first step of having something to transform from is to creating some type of structure and rhyme and reason, but not to stay there. Ours is an evolving tradition, and we both know that there have been incredibly innovative changes, but this was possibly trying to build some kind of foundation as a springboard.
Right. Thank you, Neil. Yeah. This book, I've said this before, this book is also like the beginning of nation building. So that's what's happening here, nation building. So, and maybe we should think of, rather than nation building, maybe a better way to say it is people building, like a community, building a community, not to become a nation. And in fact, that's not what it meant. That it wasn't thinking you're going to be a nation like all other nations, but coalescing the people. Because remember, a mixed multitude went out. There were lots of different people, lots of different. So they're trying to talk about how do we coalesce into being a community, so we can, like at the time, right? So we can survive. You're living in the desert. It's dangerous. You have to figure out how you're going to share food and resources. So it's coalescing of nation or peoplehood, the people. I just want to lift up what Heidi and Andre said in the chat. This is what is ahead in the US, registries and control of our data. Yeah, interestingly, like historically, our census hasn't included names, right? It's just included numbers. And registry of people, right? And so ICE is now sending letters to folks to show up early for their immigration hearing and then are there to arrest them.
There are a couple of things that when you were reading, I was thinking, those are all those thousands of people who are being called to take care of the tent of meeting. That's 1/10. And yet there are thousands upon thousands of people doing that. But that's the place of holy connection. And how we could really use that to uplift all people, really that devotion. And the other thing when
That's
you're
beautiful,
saying,
Mark. I just want to pause there for what before you. I don't want you to forget, but I just want to uplift it. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Go ahead.
And the other thing is that in more than census is that calling people by their names, but also at least last week it was what particular tribe they were from, in the head of the tribes, and it's like, how do we remember our ancestors, our lineage when we move through and on certain times? Who are we composed of at this particular moment? And I think it's it's necessary so that we can be strong as we move into the world.
Beautiful. Yeah. Judith, please.
That's amazing what you just said. And again, it reminds me of the humanity of people all around the world, and people who are moving, who are migrating, who, whether it's climate change or violence or whatever's going on, it's happening everywhere in the world. And how do those people hold on to their lineage, their family history in the face of such upheavals? It's shattering, because I know how special it is for me thinking about my family lineage.
Right. Right. And thank you for that. And you're talking, Judith, about all these people, refugees for whatever reasons, moving all these places. And that's what we were in this story, right? We were the refugees fleeing and moving. And we've seemed to have lost connection with the horror of what that feels like and what it actually is like, right? We've forgotten about the fact that we were strangers in another land and oppressed. And not only were we strangers, but then we were still strangers in other lands, right? We couldn't go into certain countries in our journey. We had to traverse various ways. We couldn't go the straight route because we were going to take all of our trauma with us. So we had to go this divergent long 40 years. And then we still couldn't, even all the people got out, still couldn't get in because they still had all their trauma. And here we are, still holding our trauma and guiding and having it lead us. So, yeah, I wish that we could, as a people, reconnect with our humanity and our vulnerability. And I think that's really part of the challenge right now for us is we're not connected. Our victimhood, our embracing our victimhood is not connecting us to other people's victimhood. It's exceptionalizing our victimhood instead of it leading to the shared humanity. And it leads us to think that we're the grasshoppers. If you remember the story of when the um, the spies go out and they report back, oh, we were grasshoppers. There's still some way in which that mentality still lives in us, so that we then embrace violence and power over dynamics to keep us safe. I also think that there's a lot of political, obviously, elements to this that is just a worldview of domination and power over. Um, but we clothe ourselves, wrap ourselves in our victim mentality, and it ends up becoming very toxic. So, okay, we continue. Great. Heidi and Neil, you good if we continue? Quick. Yep.
Everything you said is true. And despite that, about 20, 25 years ago, Rabbi Zalman led a contingency of Jewish leaders that consulted with the Dalai Lama in terms of how to maintain cultural continuity despite being exiled from their land and having all the challenges of being dispersed.
Yeah. I don't know that the Dalai Lama would turn to us now. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Okay, does somebody want to read chapter 5?
I can read if no one else wants to.
Thanks, Heidi.
Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, instruct the Israelites to remove from camp anyone with an eruption or a discharge and anyone defiled by a corpse. Remove male and female alike, put them outside the camp so that they do not defile the camp of those in whose midst I dwell.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
The Israelites did so, putting them outside the camp, as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh had spoken to Moses, so the Israelites did. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites. When men or women individually commit any wrong toward a fellow human being, thus breaking faith with Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and they realize their guilt, they shall confess the wrong that they have done. They shall make restitution in the principal amount and add 1/5 to it, giving it to the one who was wronged. If that party is deceased and has no kin, to whom restitution can be made, the amount repaid shall go to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh for the priest, in addition to the ram of expiation, with which expiation is made of on their behalf. So too, any gift of the sacred donations that the Israelites offer shall be the priest's, and each shall retain his sacred donations. Each priest shall keep what is given to him. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, any party whose wife has gone astray and broken faith with him, in that another man has had carnal relations with her unbeknownst to her husband, and she keeps secret the fact that she has defiled herself without being forced, and there is no witness against her, but in a fit of jealousy comes over him, and he is wrought up about the wife who has defiled herself, or in a fit of jealousy comes over him, and he is wrought about his wife, although she has not defiled herself, that party shall bring his wife to the priest. And he shall bring as an offering for her 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. No oil shall be poured upon it, no frankincense shall be laid on it, for it is a meal offering of jealousy, a meal offering of remembrance, which recalls wrongdoing. The priest shall bring her forward and have her stand before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. The priest shall take sacred water in an earthen vessel, and taking some of the earth that is on the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall put it into the water. After he has made the woman stand before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the priest shall bear the woman's head and place upon her hands the meal offering of remembrance, which is a meal offering of jealousy. And in the priest's hands shall be the water of bitterness that induces the spell. The priest shall adjure the woman, saying to her, if no other party has lain with you, if you have not gone astray in defilement while living in your husband's household, be immune to harm from this water of bitterness that induces the spell. But if you have gone astray while living in your husband's household and defiled yourself, if any party other than your husband has had carnal relations with you, here the priest shall administer the curse of adjuration to the woman, as the priest goes on to say to the woman, may Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh make you a curse and an imprecation among your people, as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh causes your thigh to sag and your belly to distend. May this water that induces the spell enter your body, causing the belly to distend and the thigh to sag. And the woman shall say, Amen, Amen. The priest shall put these curses down in writing and rub it off into the water of bitterness. He is to make the woman drink the water of bitterness that induces the spell, so that the spell-inducing water may enter into her to bring on bitterness. Then the priest shall take from the woman's hand the meal offering of jealousy, elevate the meal offering before Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, and present it to the altar. The priest shall scoop out the meal offering, a token part of it, and turn it into smoke on the altar. Last, he shall make the woman drink the water. Once he has made her drink the water, if she has defiled herself by breaking faith with her husband, the spell-inducing water shall enter into her, bring on bitterness, so that her belly shall distend and her thighs sag, and the wife shall become a curse among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is pure, she shall be unharmed and able to retain seed. This is the ritual in cases of jealousy, when a woman goes astray while living in her husband's household and defiles herself, or when a fit of jealousy comes over a husband and he is wrought up over his wife. The woman shall be made to stand before Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, and the priest shall carry out all of this ritual with her. The man shall be clear of guilt, but the woman shall suffer for her guilt. I don't know exactly what that means, but it sounds troubling.
The whole thing is troubling. Before we get into the sota, that's called, let's back up for a minute to the part about if you've committed a wrong, you shall admit it. You shall take responsibility for it, because that's a very powerful part of a tradition, our tradition, right? And it goes into it's teshuvah, right? You shall. So it said you shall admit the wrong publicly, right? And then you shall offer restitution. So this is like a teshuvah process. And Maimonides has a whole 5-step teshuvah process. But so you need, in this case, what they're saying is you need to have a confession, right? You need to be aware that you've made a wrong. And then you need to be willing to humble yourself enough to say, oops, yuck, I made a wrong. And I mean, I think for all of us, we've all experienced times when that's not so easy to do, right? I think we get caught up by shame. Mostly, I think it's shame or embarrassment, another form of shame, maybe a more gentle form of shame. We get concerned that something's going to happen to us if we admit we were wrong, certainly in a legal context. That we're afraid of that, right? Like the law is set up so if you admit you're wrong, you're going to be liable. And so people shy away from admitting that they're wrong, that they've done something wrong, so that they're not legally culpable and hence have to pay restitution. But this makes it clear that you have to pay restitution. So then it says after you admit the wrong, right, you have to make a sacrifice. And it has to be unblemished. So I think we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago about why the unblemished versus the blemished. And part of what we discussed was the fact that the unblemished are actually a larger sacrifice on behalf of the person. Like that, it has more worth for them. Maybe they could sell the unblemished animal more easily, or so it's more costly, literally, financially to them. But the sacrifice isn't the repair. Right? That's not what makes the repair between the people. What makes the repair between the people is taking responsibility and making a restitution and an apology. So the sacrifice to God is essentially so you can be forgiven from God. It's an offering to repair the break between you and the divine. And I might argue, or I'll put this out there and we can talk about it if you want. And also maybe it's a recognition that there's also harm to community. When there's harm between people, there's breaks in community and the community gets undermined. So also maybe the sacrifice is, I'm thinking out loud here, honestly, the sacrifice, I think we can also think of it as a way to hold and repair the break in community because the community sees it and experiences it. It's a collective experience. And I think that there's a lot of teachings around the power of saying things out loud. And I said earlier during our prayers, like when you say the prayers out loud and you chant them, like they really they get embodied in a way that like thinking them doesn't quite do that for ourselves, let alone obviously if you're saying an apology for the other, just saying it internally has no meaning. But also saying it out loud means that we're really taking it on more because it gets more embedded in us. It has a psychological impact as well as an embodied physiological impact on us. And then in Maimonides, 5 things also, then you have to make repair. You have to kind of basically explain how you understand what was wrong and then commit to never do it again and never do it again. So that's the test, right? Like the test is what happens in the future when a situation like that presents itself. Did you learn and not repeat and make the same harm again? But all of this requires us, right, to be vulnerable and to be willing to admit that we are not perfect and that we make mistakes and that we can repair. And I don't know, I think I'm going to invite us all for a moment into a self-reflective moment of when it has been hard for you to take responsibility, to admit that you've made a mistake. And then so take a moment to find that for yourself. And have folks found it? So find and then connect with the feeling of what made it hard, like shame, fear. Now connect back to what's the story you're telling yourself. Like if you were to admit it, then this would mean what? And where did you first hear that message? And where throughout your life was that message repeated? Right? By teachers, by media, by our culture, right? That there's something wrong about making a mistake, about missing the mark, as we call it in our tradition. Now imagine releasing that story and that shame or fear or whatever that feeling is. Imagine letting it go. Imagine embracing the fullness of your humanity with all of its beauty and bumps, all of its tenderness and rough spots. And see if you can find a time when you also receive that message that you were just perfect as you were, or you experienced that feeling of that in someone's gaze, looking in the mirror. That experience of knowing that you're enough, that perfection is not something to strive for, that missing the mark is just an opportunity to turn more deeply into your truest self that you yearn to be. And give that self a big hug. And if anyone wants to share what came up for you, please feel free to do so. Joyce.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm very embarrassed. A dinner with a few friends a few weeks ago, I probably said something that I shouldn't have said, which kind of pointed out that one person in the group, and it really wasn't just one person, and I didn't take that, into account, and I shouldn't have. If I had made it general, it would have not, targeted a person. I was talking about going to a place where they serve fun alcoholic beverages in the near future. And I said something about, oh, and there'll be other kinds of drinks too for David. And I really should not have said that. And he wasn't the only person there who doesn't drink alcohol. And I just don't know why I was so thoughtless and insensitive and stupid. And I typed up a letter of apology in an email, and it took me a few days to send it. I wanted to say it right, apologize right, and I'm still feeling very embarrassed. I, told him I valued his friendship and all the good stuff, and then I was really sorry
Mm.
if I said something that was really inappropriate. But it took me a while to send it because I don't know, it was hard, and I haven't heard from him. I still feel very embarrassed.
Mm.
But I have to. I don't know if this is the right time to say it, and I can reserve it if it's not. But so this um, parsha that you just read was all about the woman. So is there, a similar section
Yeah,
about a
we'll talk
man?
about the sota in a minute. We'll talk about this
Okay,
in a minute.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. Thank you for sharing. And I want to remind us or encourage us to talk gentle to ourselves. I do. Sometimes I find myself like I do something and it's not a big deal. It's like not important. I'm like, God, that was so stupid. I was like, wait a minute. That was just silly. Or that was just, missing the mark. And I want to encourage us to, even when we make mistakes that are meaningful, that could cause harm, to also be kind and forgiving of ourselves, and to understand that there was not intended harm. Thank you so much, Joyce, for sharing.
You're welcome.
Andre. There you go.
During the exercise, a lot of complicated stuff came up for me, but the hug at the end really helped. That's what I say.
Nice. You can do that anytime you want. Anyone else? Should we go to the sota? Blah. Okay, so first off, there's my new kitty, who's enjoying free reign of the house today because the dog is not here. They have still not worked out their friendship yet. I'm hoping that happens. So the sota. So first of all, look, it's just patriarchy doing patriarchy. It's horrific. It's terrible. We hate it. It's also very interesting because it's a magical thing. Like whether we agree with, like, forget putting that aside for a moment, this is pure magic, and we're not supposed to do magic. And so the rabbis struggled with that a lot. And when they first built, at this point they had the tabernacle and it was just on the ground so they could get the dirt. But then they had like the temple. So how'd they get the dirt? They literally created a hole in the middle that they covered, and they would uncover it when they were first doing this. And then they eventually said, wait a minute, we shouldn't be doing this. But I think they said they shouldn't do it because it was magic. And we're not supposed to like do this whole magic thing, which is very interesting. I don't think it was like a sudden like feminist reinterpretation or re-understanding of this. So there is a potential feminist twist on this. I don't think it solves it by any stretch of the imagination. But here's a feminist twist on this. That there's two ways to understand this. The woman, in fact, did have an affair, let's say, did have a relationship with a man. And she had the relationship with a man because her husband was unable to get her pregnant. So she was trying to get pregnant. But then, like, community found out, or the baby might not look exactly like the husband, or so they created this ritual as a way to basically save face for the man and to control his own jealousy and embarrassment. It's like, blaming the victim, right? It's like blaming, what'd you wear when you got raped type of thing. It's disgusting. And there's nothing else really to say about it other than like, we were living in it was a patriarchal time as it is today. And we have other ways that this manifests in our society that's less violent and gross. But I open it up for folks to say blah or ask questions and no, Joyce, there was nothing like that for men. When it said at the end, Heidi, that the man is guilt-free, it was the man with whom she had the affair, not the husband.
Wow.
Although there are other times in the Torah where it does say, if you have an affair, you'll both be stoned to death. So there is that.
Could there ever be, or is this just magical thinking that a person can have an affair or commit adultery, whatever you want to say, and it be good for the person and it be fulfilling?
For which person?
For the person who's not supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
And it helps in some way, and it's not a bad thing. Could that ever be, or is that just beyond all religions and a violation of the laws of the universe? I mean, what's the other side of that?
I think the amount of affairs that actually exist in this world obviously says something about the fact it's not beyond the laws of the universe. And in fact, they got rid of this also partly because there were just so many affairs that like they couldn't control it. They'd be doing this all the time. I think the issue, affairs have their own problems, to be sure. They're very hurtful and painful, but I think that part of what makes it so hurtful and painful is that they're usually secretive, right? I think that when people make agreements about reaching out to others for intimacy and connection because something's missing in the marriage, or the marriage has been for so many years and they're both looking for something else, but the marriage still stays together, or we work through it and we figure out what the marriage needs to either move on or stay together. But I think the real issue, right, is the fact that it's all a secret. And so, but that doesn't mean that that the person having the affair doesn't have something that's really meaningful and wonderful for them. It could, because the main relationship could be so void. But it's not something that I would encourage. um, it causes so much pain in relationships. Yeah, Mark.
Out here in the West Coast, on the East Coast, I had attended online a Torah discussion, and they focused on this part of the parsha. And I went in a different direction what people were talking about, but part of what stays with me, and this might be a little bit divergent, but someone had pointed out this is Bimidbar in the wilderness, and that they were focusing on the husband being jealous as, um, that this is the curative to jealousy, not even thinking anything about whether this woman was the wife was, having an affair or not.
Right.
But for me, it's whether it's jealousy or whether it's desire or whatever comes up in a human life, we have these feelings that come up, and we can speak it and name it. As you were saying, we don't have to hide it, and we don't necessarily have to act on it, but if we act on it too, we act on it. But the idea is to do something with the feelings, with the actions, with the jealousy. And the spell to me is concentrating our minds and focusing on resolution, diffusing it in water, so to speak. And
Yeah.
that is a way. I mean, because really, I don't know if a person would drink the water actually and have a distended belly or sagging thighs. If that's beside the point. The point is just to find a way through this time, whatever has been done, whatever came up in the wilderness of our lives, what comes up in our lives, to
Right.
have a way of finding resolution.
Right. It is a way to it's a twisted homeopathic remedy for the man's jealousy, but the homeopathic remedy has to be given to the person who's sick, who has the illness, not to the person who is theoretically causing the feelings that are arising. But yes, I mean, it is an attempt to manage the man's jealousy, and it becomes, that's why I said it was like blaming the victim, it becomes her responsibility to manage his emotions. How many people have experienced this in their lives, where it's our responsibility to manage someone else's emotions? This is right. So yeah, thank you, Mark. Debbie.
Isn't some of the whole deal the fact that women were property back then?
They, that's a really interesting question. I'm not sure that in the Torah it actually says their property, but it probably does. It at least implies that. But yeah, I mean, she lives in her husband's household, and so he has control over her for sure. Where'd you go? There you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just the patriarchal structure. She doesn't have the same power.
Right. Exactly. Kind of like Sarah and Abraham were.
Right. Or Hagar would be a better.
Yes. And then I was thinking of Judah and Tamar, although I guess that's kind of a different thing.
Yeah.
Although, was Judah married?
Yeah.
He was. So he did his.
Well, no, not at the time. Was it not when he was with Tamar?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was his daughter-in-law.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I just wondered if he was married to somebody else
no,
and he was being
not at that
faithful.
time.
Okay.
Thank you. Heidi and then Judith.
This is taking the conversation a slightly different way, but I've been thinking about missing the mark. And I spend a lot of time thinking about missing the mark. And sometimes missing the mark to me is, um, well, it's a little, I think it was Joyce who was saying, like, saying something and thinking, like, oh, I didn't really have to say that. Why did I say that? And so that's missing the mark. But there are times that I experience where no matter what I do, I feel like there's a missed mark. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel stuck or sandwiched or pulled in like different directions, and I have to make choices. And um and I want to try and in my life at least differentiate those moments where missing the mark means I didn't really fully understand the sensitivity of somebody, and so my behavior in some way offended or hurt them, from these other situations where like there's no really clean, essentially unequivocally good choice, and you're in this balance, and then I have to forgive myself that you know that there's fallout from the decision. So I don't know whether other people have anything, but it's something that I really worry a lot about at times when I feel that kind of trap.
Yeah. Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate that distinction. Feels like that a lot right now. How do we nuance these moments and make nuanced choices that maybe there's no choice that isn't in some ways not spot on or not good enough even. Or maybe it's just good enough, but it's still not really what we want. Yeah, I have definitely experienced that. Thank you. Judith.
I was I was thinking about the story of Dina and how her rape, as it's described as a rape, is seen by her father, Jacob, as a blemish on him and on his family. And even though
It was seen
the
as
man agrees to marry her and she wants to marry, he seems to agree to marry him, two other sons just
right.
demolish this guy's family and community. So there, whether the woman is seen as property of the husband or the daughters are seen as property of their fathers, I think there's definitely that thread in there.
Yes, there is definitely that thread. I think that actually, though, the rage was more by the brothers than the father. The brothers were the ones that, like, well, so even at first, I think the father kind of got caught up in having to do something, and then he's like, okay, we'll marry him. But either way, yes, I mean, for sure, women are. What I was saying was, I don't think of them, but they really were property. I just didn't think of them as like owned property in the same way, but it doesn't matter. They really were property of either their fathers or their husbands, one or the other.
Except for Zelophehad's daughters.
Blessed.
Yes.
So those are the five daughters whose father died, and they challenge Moses about the distribution of assets and resources, and then God says, no, their claim is right. They should get the distribution that male members of the family would have gotten if he had had sons. And then that, I don't know when we read that, but then it gets watered down a little bit. But that's what God originally says, and then Moses waters it down because Moses is patriarchal, and God perhaps actually isn't. Yes. Okay. Have we drank enough of the sota? Yeah, Neil.
everything that's said from a feminist perspective, I agree with wholeheartedly. There's nothing that justifies this. I want to explore a more subtle level of the deeper structure. Uh, the male outrage obviously had to do with the sense of having been an enslaved people, not being able to protect the women in their community from violation and having a deep wound about that. That part is legitimate. How it got played out, though, is pretty disgusting. And as was already stated, depriving the women of a voice or agency in the situation. In an ideal world, let's say that this was true, there was widespread violations. What we know about rape victims is that there's difficulty setting boundaries. There's an unconscious reenactment to try and understand. So let's say, even if this were true, that somebody's wife had gotten involved with someone not for procreation, but just got involved with them, that would be indicative of not only are the men psychically wounded by what had happened, but that the women were also, and it requires mercy and healing rather than acting upon in order to disconnect from one's sense of vicarious shame.
Thank you. The thing about this story is like there's no there's a presumption. The focus is on the fact that the man is jealous. It is we don't actually know if the woman's done anything. So it's really about a man can just say, I'm jealous. I think my wife did X. So we don't actually know if the woman did anything. And if a woman did have an affair or a man had an affair, we don't know the reasons behind that. Yeah. So thank you. Brent, and then I want to get on to the priestly blessing part of this parsha, which is way more beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm sure it is. Well, the thing that came to my mind, which because of the larger picture, is that the Israel war on Gaza involved the sexual violence and rape and bodily violence that happened on October 7th, and that how that's obviously contributed. Many things happened that had the Jewish citizens and maybe other citizens think of their security, certainly their security being violated, and the great fear that caused. So one of my thoughts is, and this is sort of related, was that, and this isn't my area of expertise, but I thought victims of sexual violence and of rape and of other violence and murder should not be the ones who determine the punishment. And I feel, in a way, and there is due course. There is international law that could have been invoked, I believe, when another nation or another entity violates your territory and does harm to your fellow citizens. There are international recourses. They'd be slow. So the thought I had was that rape, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not sure rape victims and victims of violence and just there in the State Road and other border areas or anywhere should be the ones determining the punishment. And I was thinking that's where, well, there's so many places that the international community has fared, but that's the way it ideally would have been handled. To say, yeah, all these horrific things happened, but we have to not react immediately in hitting back or punching back or destruction.
Yeah.
For many number of reasons. So that's a thought that came to my mind, and I sort of think it's such a crime that Biden went there and spent a couple days there, and I doubt that was part of his thinking. And I'm not sure he could have controlled that, but he might have, because just like 9/11, the U.S. hit back without going to international recourse, and it was such a disaster for all parties concerned. So that was just what came to my mind. I didn't mean to prevent us from continuing the discussion.
No,
but thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we don't actually know what really happened in October 7th because there's never been independent investigators allowed in. I mean, we know some of what happened, but we don't know the details of it all, and nor are there independent reporters allowed into Gaza. So, unfortunately. So, yeah, obviously, if somebody could stop Israel at any point in the past 75 years, that would have created a different scenario. And of course, I don't at all condone what happened on October 7th. It was horrific. And in a restorative justice process, which is a process, and transformative justice process, which is one that I would support, victims would have a say in what happened because that's what helps make them whole too. So, but it would be a process that was more restorative than punitive. It might have punitive consequences, but the intention would be restorative and reparations. But that's not something we've ever seen on international level, let alone even in most criminal justice settings, or even really within so many families. So that's part of the work, is for us to learn how to transform our systems of violence into systems of reparation, repair, love, and justice. And that's really some of the main work. So thank you, Brent. Thank you. Okay, let's continue because we get the priestly blessing and it's way more interesting than this. Okay. Somebody want to read?
Yeah, this is Brent. I can try reading.
Thank you.
Let me just make this screen larger here. Adonai Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, if any men or women explicitly utter a Nazarite's vow to set themselves apart for Yahweh Adonai, they shall abstain from wine and any other intoxicant. They shall drink vinegar. They shall not drink vinegar of wine or any other intoxicant. Neither shall they drink anything in which grapes have been steeped, nor eat grapes fresh or dried. Throughout their term as Nazarite, they may not eat anything that is obtained from the grapevine, even seeds or skin. Throughout the term of their vow as Nazarite, no razor shall touch their head. It shall remain consecrated until the completion of their term as Nazarite of Yahweh Adonai, the hair of their head being left to grow untrimmed. Throughout the term that they have set apart for Yahweh Adonai, they shall not go in where there's a dead person. Even if their father or mother or brother or sister should die, they must not become defiled for any of them. Since hair set apart for God, their God is upon their head. Throughout their term as Nazarite, they are consecrated to Yahweh Adonai. If someone dies suddenly nearby, defiling the consecrated hair, the Nazarite shall shave the head at the time of becoming pure, shaving it on the seventh day. On the eighth day, that person shall bring 2 turtle doves, or 2 pigeons to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering, the other as a burnt offering, and make expiation on the person's behalf for the guilt incurred through the corpse. That same day the head shall be reconsecrated, and that person shall rededicate to Yahweh Adonai the term as Nazarite, bringing a lamb in its first year as a penalty offering. Previous period shall be void, since the consecrated hair was defiled. This is the ritual for the Nazarite. On the day of the term as Nazarite is completed, the person shall be brought to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and an offering to Yahweh Adonai that person shall present. 1 male lamb in its first year without blemish for a burnt offering, 1 ewe lamb in its first year without blemish for a sin offering, and 1 ram without blemish for an offering of well-being. A blanket of unleavened cakes of choice flour with oil mixed in, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and the proper meal offering and libations. And the libations, thank you, libations. The priest shall present them before Yahweh Adonai and offer the sin offering and the burnt offering. He shall offer the rams as sacrifice of well-being to Adonai, Yahweh, together with the basket of unleavened cakes. The priest shall offer the meal offering and the libations. The Nazarite shall then shave the consecrated head hair at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and shall those locks of consecrated hair put them on the fire that is under the sacrifice of well-being. The priest shall take the shoulder of the ram when it has been boiled, one unleavened cake from the basket, and 1 unleavened wafer, and place them on the hands of the Nazarite after the consecrated hair has been shaved. The priest shall elevate them as an elevation offering before Yahweh Adonai, and this shall be a sacred donation for the priest, in addition to the breast of the elevation offering and the thigh of the gift offering. After that, the Nazarite may drink wine. Such is the obligation of the Nazarite, except those who vow an offering to Yahweh of what they can afford beyond their Nazarite requirements, must do exactly according to the vow that they have made beyond their obligation as Nazarites.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I continue?
Yep, this is the part I wanted to read.
Okay. Speak to Aaron and his sons. They shall bless the people of Israel and say to them, bless you and protect you, deal kindly and graciously with you. I'm sorry. I don't know. Yahweh bless you and protect you. Yahweh God deal kindly and graciously with you. Yahweh Adonai God bestow divine favor upon you and grant you peace. And they shall link my name with the people of Israel, and I will bless them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Amen, amen. Okay,
Amen, amen.
This is the priestly blessing. Parents say this to their children at night. This is when you see this, this is the priestly blessing. So there's a couple things I want to say about it. So the first one is Aaron and his sons, the Kohenet, do the priestly blessing, but they're channeling God. They're not the ones who are doing the blessing. They're just channeling the divine energy. So anytime someone offers any blessing, whether it's a rabbi or a spiritual leader offering this or another blessing, or a friend offering a friend a blessing, this is, it's like we're opening our channel to divine source, to divine energy, and hearing the blessing that flows through us and offering it to the person to whom we're saying the blessing, or the group to whom we're saying the blessing. And it's like, you can imagine like that it's a divine source flowing through. It's not you blessing, it's this, calling upon the source and hearing it. And when I've been asked to give blessings, it feels big, right? It's like, oh, please give a blessing. I'm like, What am I going to say? What am I going to say? And what's amazing about it is when I quiet my mind and stop the what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And oh, it has to be better than what that other person said, or it should be perfect for this person, or whatever. And I just quiet my mind and I sit in silence for a moment and maybe I look at the person who I'm offering the blessing to. Maybe I close my eyes and go inward. Something flows through me and it's not mine. It truly is a blessing from somewhere beyond. So I want to invite all of you right now. I'm going to say more about the structure of this, but now that I've set it up that way, I'm going to invite all of you to think of somebody in your life. And it can even be yourself if that's what's necessary or what's being called forth in this moment, that you want to call forth from divine source a blessing for. And picture them or yourself as if they're standing or you are standing in front of themselves, in front of you. Imagine seeing them right there. And now just open your arms and your hands and your chest and your heart. Imagine your upper chakra on the top of your head opening. Imagine energy from your feet being open to the divine source from below and then above from your head, from your divine chakra at the top, your crown chakra. And again, imagine your heart opening and your heart chakra opening. And I'm just going to give everyone 2 minutes to just see what blessing channels through you from divine source. And just know it's from divine source. When you're ready, you can come back and you can just know that it was sent to them. Just trust that they received it. So I'm going to say a few words about this blessing. So Yud He Vav He, bless you. So Sforno says that the bless you is for material well-being. And I found this rather troubling in this time. He says, since without flour, there is no Torah. And I couldn't help, of course, but think about the lack of flour or the exorbitant cost of flour in Gaza. So what does Torah mean, right? Torah means like without flower, there is no even way to learn from divine source. If your material basic needs aren't met, it's hard to really connect with divine source. It kind of sounds like Maslow's triangle, which actually is shown to be not true, because if you can just see it in the Gaza right now, they literally don't have material well-being, and yet they have such access to divine source that it's kind of stunning to witness. And then he says, protect you means to keep you from thieves so you don't lose what you have. Can you believe that like I was reading this in this particular moment when we just learned, I don't know if everyone heard this, that Israel, the thieves, the so-called gangs and thieves are being funded by Israel, that they were the ones funding like a more extreme Islamic sect in Gaza. Whew. But Netziv says, and he lived in 1816 to 1893. Seforno lived in 1475 to 1550. So he says, Netziv, and I really like this, that each person, bless you means that each person will be granted the blessing that they need. So even though this is the blessing, right, it's a quote unquote generic blessing, but still each person gets the blessing that they uniquely need. And then the protect you aspect of it is to protect you so the blessing doesn't become a stumbling block. So what does that mean? So that if you are blessed with resources, money, that it doesn't lead to greed and hoarding. So I might say, so that the blessing of nationhood doesn't lead to a nation that's creating genocide and slaughter and ethnic cleansing of another people. It's become, and desecration of our Torah. It's become the stumbling block or curse. It's no longer a blessing. And then the Talmudic sage, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi says, if one is meritorious, there we go, the Torah becomes for them an exhaler of life, right? It's this nourishing. But if not, it can become a deadly poison. The life of Torah can make us kinder, gentler, more loving, and it can make us cold and merciless. Heschel says, there has indeed been so much pious abuse that the Bible is often in need of being saved from the hands of its admirers. So I'm going to give the priestly blessing. And the last of it is, thus they shall link my name with the people of Israel and I will bless them. So that's the connection between God and the people and one another. This is, right, this is an individual blessing and it's a collective blessing. May the Shekhinah bless you and protect you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May Shekhinah deal kindly and graciously with you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yashem lecha shalom. May Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh bestow divine favor and grace upon you and grant you peace. Amen. So now we will finish up with our blessings after the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Brucha Shekhinah notenet haTorah. Amen. I'll chant this, and you can chant as well where you are. And feel free to, as I'm chanting, just quietly unmute yourself if there's names of people you want to say healing for, and just say them. And if they're said over one another, it's fine. They're all just the names are uplifted in the prayer itself. So that we're just as we're chanting it, the names are going to be uplifted. Okay? You got that? So feel free to unmute and say the names. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bela V'Zilpa Uyivarek V'Yirapeh Et HaCholim Mishaberach Imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bela V'Zilpa Abraham, Yitzhak, veYaakov, Hitivarech, v'yirapeh ha'cholim. El narefan Allah, El narefan Allah, El narefan Allah, El narefan Allah. May all those in need of healing, all those people being swept up in the atrocious actions of our government here in the United States and the atrocious actions and complicity of our government and the Israeli government in Gaza and the West Bank be healed. And may all those that we love and care about and that we've named today, may they all be uplifted and healed in body, mind, emotional, psychological, and spiritual well-being, and may they return to us fully and completely healed. And let us say,
Amen.
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 Yeah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem Torati al tazovu Eitz chaim hi amachazik ba vetomchea meusha erachet ba darchei Noah vechoneti Shalom Hashem Adonai Elecha benashuva Chadesh yameinu It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. May that be so in our day. Amen.
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 I'm going to do, so Aleinu, as I've said before, means it is upon us. So I'm going to do my best to sing Halinir's beautiful song, We Are Open and We Are Willing. Because to me, it's a beautiful Aleinu, and we've transformed the Aleinu and made it beautiful, but it has some problematic elements. So for today, lately, this is what I've been choosing. I always play it on my phone and during the week when I'm praying at the end of my prayers. We are open and we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange if dishonors
those
go before us. So lift us up
to
the light of change. There is hurting in our family, and there is sorrow In our town, there is a panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world around. But we are open and we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. And we are open and we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up to the light of change. Give us a mighty oak to hold our confusion, and give us a desert to hold our fears. Give us a sunset to hold our wonder, and give us an ocean to hold our tears. And we are open and we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up to the light of change. Now we say Kaddish. If you're saying Kaddish for someone, please, in particular, please feel free to unmute and say their name.
My father, Richard Ansley Bloomberg.
Gila bat Hana Laban.
Mark Gottlieb, Rabbi Bert Jacobson, Rabbi Michael Lerner.
What else? Okay. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shmei Rabbah. Dibra, Dibra, Chute, Yamlich Machute. V'chayachon, V'yomechon, V'chaye D'Kol Yisrael.
Israel.
Agala, Zman,
Karim, Vimru.
Amen. Yehei
Yehei Shemera Abba Mivarak Leolam Olameo Maya. Yit Barak, Yishtabach,
Yitpa'ar, V'yitrama, V'yitnaseh.
Day,
Adar,
Yitadar,
Yitoleh,
Yitalei,
Yitala,
Yitala, Shmei Dekudish,
Shaberechu.
Le'el Amin,
Bechirahata, Beshirata,
Mishpachet,
Tushachata, Benechemata.
Nechemata,
Amen.
Damira, Yoma.
Amen. Yehei Ramama,
Yehei Shlama Abba Rabba Min Shema. V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. V'imru Amin. Say,
Shalom b'mamav, Ya'aseh Shalom.
Say Shalom.
Aleinu v'al kol
Aleinu V'al Kol
Yisrael,
Yisrael.
kol Yishmael,
Abel.
Yish Tevel, v'imaru. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. May their memories be for a blessing always. I will be right back. I have to grab the stuff. So feel free to unmute and say hello to each other.
Hello. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom to you, Joyce.
Thank you. Hello from Arcata.
Hello. Shabbat Shalom to everyone from Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Wow.
All right.
What's the temperature in Tallahassee?
Probably in the upper 80s to low 90s, but we've had a lot of rain, so it's also very humid.
Mm.
I would think that area would be quite humid.
North Florida, yeah, like South Georgia. Very humid.
Arcata's on the north coast of California.
Shamru Doro Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asod et HaShabbat leDorotam Berit Olam Veshamru Doro Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asod et HaShabbat leDorotam Berit Olam B'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru v'doro Yisrael et HaShabbat. La'asod et HaShabbat leDorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asaya, ashaya et hashamayim. ואת הארץ ושמרו דורות ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו דורות ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית olam. On 6 days you should do all your work. The 7th day is a Shabbos to God. On it you should do no work. Not you, nor anyone in your family, nor anyone in your gates, nor anyone who works for you. Because on 6 days God made the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that was in it. And on the 7th day she rested. Therefore God blessed the 7th day and made it holy. Al kain barak ya et yom hashabbat v'yakadshehu. Bruchat Shechina Eloteinu Rach Haolam Baret Padi HaGafen Beis. The Dorot is so that it's gender neutral. That's why we change it from B'nai to Dorot, because B'nai generally means sons, although we use it to mean children or people. Am I going to do this? This is good. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'nsotav v'tzivan anitilat yadayim. May the work of our hands reflect, may divine beauty guide the work of our hands, and may our handiwork reflect our connection with the divine. Amen. I wish I could share this all with you. Baruch Shechina Eloteinu Rachei Haolamim Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Amen. Blessed are you, transformative power of the universe, who provides sustenance from the earth. As we eat, let us recommit to working to transform our world so everyone has enough to eat and live on. Or let us just open the gates to Gaza, for God's sakes. Let the food in. Jesus. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Amen. Let me stop sharing. There we go. I'm going to stop the recording.